Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer podcast. I'm Thomas Vick, joined as always by Seth Wilson of Adler Attorneys. Seth, how are you today?
Thomas, I am doing great. We were just kind of talking about how Indianapolis weather quality has cleared up a little bit. So we're feeling a little bit better after the fog that's been around this week in our area of the world. So just kind of interesting how life throws some of those curveballs at you sometimes, and there's nothing you can do about it but work through it. So it's good to
Yeah.
good to be here. Good to be here. So what's new with you?
Well, I'm sort of in the same boat with you, amazed at how we lived. And on Wednesday, we had the most polluted air on planet Earth in Indianapolis. Uh, so kind of affected me a little bit yesterday, kind of got to me, but I'm feeling better today. Ready to go for another podcast here. Um, and my blog digest is going to be going out later on today. And one of the topics in that blog digest is going to be uh, do I pay taxes on gifts to children, or do children pay taxes on gifts from parents? I think is the name of the article. Uh, what are your thoughts on that topic, Seth?
Well, it's a great question because a lot of times this scenario comes up in the context of someone having passed already, where one of the children was added as a joint account owner on mom or dad's account, depending on how that was. And that obviously becomes the survivor of that account's property at that point. And so sometimes you've got some gifting issues as you go through there. So the general kind of thought process is there is an annual gift exclusion amount that you can, as an individual, give up to another individual. I believe it's 17,000 currently. I'd have to look to double check that for sure, but you can give gifts during life valued up to a certain amount without really worrying about the tax ramifications of that. And you can gift an amount above that exclusion if you're willing to file a gift tax return on that year and claiming that as a amount against your lifetime gifting exclusion. So that's usually the context that I see this most often in. But those are kind of some of the general rules of thumb as you're thinking about it. How about you?
Yes, yeah. So anything above $17,000, you should be kind of thinking, do I need to do a gift tax return with this? That's a good point. Um, but there are actually some ways that you can get around that too. It's per individual to an individual. So maybe it's a husband that gives to a son, and then a wife gives to the same son. That can be a way of kind of expanding that rule a little bit to $34,000. And you still don't have to do the gift tax return. So that can be helpful. Uh, and then, the way that the total, gift and estate tax exemption is right now, it's so large that most people aren't going to, actually pay gift taxes on it. Each individual has an exclusion amount of about $11 million. For a married couple, it's about $22 million. And so, even though you're supposed to file a gift tax return, if you have a gift that's above that annual $17,000 at $17,000 amount, you're probably not going to pay gift taxes on any of that. Um, However, you've got to kind of think about, well, what are some other ramifications? It may not be gift taxes, but it might be Medicaid planning. It might have Medicaid consequences if you gift money away. And so if you're kind of thinking about giving money to a child, you want to have a consultation with an estate planning attorney to kind of talk about, well, what are the consequences? There may not be gift tax consequences, but there might be some other tax consequences. And I did fail to mention Indiana doesn't have any kind of gift tax. So, from a state standpoint, you don't have to worry about anything. The federal, you know, the IRS is probably the entity that you need to be concerned about when you're dealing with just taxes. So those are some thoughts that I had on that. Anything in addition to that stuff?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a good distinction, though, to remember that the individual gift to an individual. And I think sometimes we face that scenario as you just kind of navigate life, where if you're a married couple, you think, well, I can do one thing or not, especially in a power of attorney context. Well, sure, we're married. Can I sign my name to my spouse's checks, for example? Well, not legally, right? You've got an obligation there to have a valid power of attorney in place. And so there's sort of the legal aspect and the practical aspect of what happens. Is anybody going to object to it? Does your spouse really care? Will they ratify it later? You know, those are all things that can happen. So, but on the gifting side, that's really important to remember that you are an individual, your spouse is an individual. And so you can give individual to individual and maybe double what you could have passed as you walk through that process. So I think that's a good thing to remember. And also be aware that at life stages, things can change, right? So if you're later in your life stage where you may need to become Medicaid eligible at some point, you want to be very careful in those scenarios about gifting money away, where you may have thought, I can just move this money away because I have this exclusion over here. There's some different rules that can apply in that scenario from a Medicaid estate recovery context, and what they can look back and maybe even claw back into your calculation that will not be a pleasant surprise for you if you're trying to plan that way. So be aware of that.
Right. Yeah, so definitely some things to think about as far as gifts are concerned. They may have some Medicaid planning consequences, and there may be some gift tax consequences, or at least some steps that you need to take if you make a gift. Well, it's a short one today, but we got it out, and hope everyone has a pleasant 4th of July weekend. That's coming up here Tuesday. I don't know about you, Seth. I'm working on Monday, but I think everybody else in the world is taking Monday off.
Well, we're here to, keep things moving. I think we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, how sometimes there's stations in life where you're here to take care of those client needs, and it may seem like the rest of the world is out enjoying the sunshine, so to speak. But yeah, we'll be in the office on Monday as well, and just kind of keeping things moving forward. But for me, frankly, I enjoy what I do so much that that's the harder piece, is making sure that I'm blocking in appropriate time out of the office as well, because I could come in and do this all day long. It's a lot of fun.
There you go. He's a workhorse, everybody. He's a workhorse. Well, Seth, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, we are located in the heart of Hamilton County, Noblesville, Indiana, and our web address matches that, noblesvilleattorney.com, and that's where you can find our contact information. How about you, Thomas?
And my name's Thomas Vick. I'm the attorney at Vick Law PC in Greenwood, Indiana. You can contact me by going to vicklaw.org. Well, I appreciate it as always, Seth, and we'll see you next time. Everyone have a great holiday weekend.
Agreed. Thanks, Thomas.